welcoming your host, Marisa, the host of Be with Marisa Lee.
Hello, how are all of you doing today? Welcome to the 4th episode of Be with Marisa Lee, and I'm your host, Marisa, and today we're going to be talking about going back to school because I feel like that's just a really wonderful thing to decide for yourself, like once you're on a daily path of life, just deciding to gain knowledge in every possible way. It just opens up so much in life, and I'm really happy that I kind of took that out of the whole past year of just being in quarantine. I decided for myself that I wanted to learn and keep asking questions, and how can I kind of broaden of what I already know, because I went to school for fashion design and I knew I always wanted to start my own clothing brand. And if you listen to episode 2, you could hear the story of that. But I think just as I've gained another plus 2 years, I've realized that I just want to keep expanding my knowledge. And even though I do have a passion for fashion, that doesn't mean I can't learn other things. So recently deciding to study UX design, it's kind of like one of those things where I never thought I'd be doing ever. I didn't think about it till last summer, and then I was looking up how to get into it, and then I saw these boot camps. I saw this video by Chun Buns on YouTube, and she was explaining what a UX designer does on their day-to-day. And I think the one thing that caught my eye was that you're able to work and travel. And I do want to incorporate that into my life. And I also do want to work while traveling, because I'm just the type of person that always wants to be doing something no matter what. I just don't. Well, I'm learning to relax, but I just don't enjoy relaxing, because then I'm just thinking about all these things I could be doing. So I definitely like having some sort of structured work in my day where I know that's part of my routine, and then I can kind of that's my platform, and jump off of that and do other creative projects. Today I want to talk about me deciding to go back to school, and not only that, but just deciding in my life to constantly read and learn and ask questions and be curious about learning, whether it be through articles or blog posts or podcasts. I have one quote I want to share with you in a book, and then another tweet from Twitter. I just started using Twitter, so if you want to follow me, my Twitter is at Marisa M. Lee, and I'm actually going to start off by reading the tweet because I think it's a really good starting off point just to start talking about everything. It's by this person named Richard Feynman, and the tweet was, "Teach your students to doubt, to think, to communicate, to question, to make mistakes, to learn from their mistakes, and most importantly, have fun in their learning." And I just can relate to this tweet in so many ways, because as I'm growing older, I find that I'm really interested in just learning how the school system in this country is set up, and just reflecting on the enthusiasm I had going to school. And I feel like there could just be a lot of change in the way that we're taught to just inspire and keep students enthusiastic. And just when I was at school, I just remember this is also a mix of my personality, but I think just the way it's set up, I didn't feel encouraged to speak my mind, to question things, to say my opinion about what the teacher said, because it's so scary to raise your hand. And then after that, I don't know, there just wasn't the environment where I felt comfortable that even if I did raise my hand and say something that was unrelated to the topic, I didn't feel comfortable enough to say that And I wasn't even inspired to get to that point and try to express my point of view. And also the thing with just working, I guess I'm thinking more of high school, but just like, I think because you're growing up, you don't even think to question what the teacher is saying sometimes. So like, how can you spark that curiosity and interest in your students or people in their teens to question what they're learning and like really expand, or just to continue learning like outside of the classroom, because it's like you're so bored in the classroom. How are you even questioning what else is out there when you don't even want to be learning at the source of where you are, which is school? And I just think the whole system of testing is really unnecessary, because like, you take a test, you have so much pressure on this one point, this one like marker, where how about all the other days where you're learning and possibly putting in effort, and it just doesn't match up. Like, all of it comes down to this one test where it's bad to make a mistake. Like, you'll get a minus for getting a wrong answer. Like, you shouldn't get minuses if your work is shown, or you can explain where you're coming from to get to an answer. Like, we should be graded on our effort, and then figuring out a system where our efforts are graded versus the answer. And that's where I want to go to this book. It's called The Art of Nonconformity, and the headline is A Few Dangerous Ideas that the author speaks about. This is about the school system, or just any school and institute. It says students could revolt and change universities, shifting the balance of power toward the group that enables the institution to exist in the first place. In no other institution in the world does a large majority willingly give over so much power to a tiny minority. Grading could be abolished or modified, and curriculums rewritten to reward trial and error, then rote memorization. And I was like, whoa. No wonder it's a dangerous idea. But the main thing that relates to what I just said is the grading could be abolished or modified. It could definitely be modified to encourage the continuation of learning. And it's just, you just lose it when you're in school. Like, you don't care. Like, you don't care about, or I didn't care about learning. All I wanted to do is just like, I just didn't want to think about school. I mean, that led to me doing my other hobbies, like sewing, or like revamping thrifted clothes, or drawing or painting, which is nice because that's what I know I'm really interested in. But because of school, it made me think I don't like writing because I just wasn't inspired. Like, all I was told to write about were these old books that are just forced for you to read. And like, shouldn't we be able to pick as a collective what we want to read and what like we can relate to, being like that age in school? Like, I think that would be more engaging. But, you know, it's not like that. And now that I'm going back to school, I just noticed a change in the way that I approach my learning. Is like, I'm really excited. I want to be doing it every day, like studying the whole day. I don't want to stop to go to the bathroom, which is not the best thing for my bladder, but that's just like how excited I am about learning about UX design. It's like this new thing that I explored myself, and I figured out the next step that I wanted to do. So I'm like taking responsibility of learning and my education. I wanted to read this quote, or this note that I wrote. It says, taking responsibility for my own learning. All the knowledge is there. How much do you want to dig deep into it? Whoa. I mean, I think with all of last year, I thought I wasn't doing anything actively because I wasn't working, which is like how you think working is your only source of productivity. But then my therapist helped me realize that working on myself and just trying to understand who I am and be easy on myself counted as work. And I put in work into myself to figure out what my values are, what my intentions are, like what I hope to do with whatever career I have. And it's what led me to finding UX design. And I really just like it because I even ran into the hard part where I was finishing these foundational courses, learning user interaction design, which is the more artsy side of it because you design like exactly what the user would see. And I got stuck on the last project. I practically did it. And then I got feedback. And then no one said it was like, oh, you should start all over. Or like, oh, nothing's working. It was like I felt stuck. And I did feel like pretty bad about it. And if you want a detailed process of what that looks like, you could check out the Medium article, which will also be linked into the details of the episode. But it just came, like, I remember a whole week. I had been working on my boot camp, and then I got stuck, and then a whole week I just took a break because I was like, I'm not going to push myself. I'm not going to be hard on myself. I was still hard on myself because I didn't know what to do about the project, but eventually I just like reevaluated my project, didn't like have any attachment to it. I reread through all the notes of like usability principles, making it easy for the user to flow through the website of the app. And then I felt like all this energy to redesign it because I know what I'm studying is like I actually like learning it, and the school makes me, or not makes me, but like supports this energy that I have to learn a new skill. So that's why I really think it's so important to know that you want to learn, because as kids we're kind of just like, well, you have to go to school. And it's like, well, if we have to go to school, then shouldn't we have some sort of say in like certain things that we're learning, because that could help us want to broaden our spectrum and like just learn different things. Like now outside of my boot camp, I know I always want to be like reading other UX design blog posts or like listening to other design podcasts because I know that I want to learn. And I just feel like in high school, middle school, I mean, elementary school is fun, you know, because you're a young kid. But just in middle school and high school, I don't feel like they do a good job inspiring people to learn. The only class I felt inspired to keep pushing myself was my ceramics class, and that's my art class, so there's that. For the boot camp that I'm doing now, the user experience boot camp, I set kind of like warning points for myself where I may be reaching burnout, which is something that I'm learning like on my own personal journey, is that learning when to take a break or taking a step away. So some of these points are when I'm just staring at the computer because it's late at night and my mind is like not functioning, I know to go to sleep. Or when I'm trying to think about something and I easily know that in the morning I could figure it out really fast, but as I'm working it just comes to a point where I'm just going in circles and I can't figure it out. Or another one is if I'm kind of just at a roadblock and I really don't know what to do, I will take a step away and take a break for a day because I'm just stuck. Like anything that just leads to running in circles, that's when I know to take a break, and when I may be reaching a point where I just reach burnout and can't think about anything. When I came into UX, I really wasn't sure how I would be combining my fashion design background and this new skill set that I was coming into, and I really thought they couldn't mesh. But after talking to my mentor, she really encouraged me that having like different hobbies or like just my past schooling in fashion design can really make me a unique hire for a company, because I have these marketing and entrepreneurial and business skills that I learned from starting my brand, which then I could take into working for another brand as a UX designer, so I could understand the different pain points of when they're using an app. And especially if it's a small company, I could help with other parts of the company besides UX, because I know small companies, like it's only, if they're really small, it could only be 5 people or less. That's a really tiny company. But yeah, I just like wearing all these different hats. I'm totally down to work for a small business, and that's actually what I'm aiming for with this UX degree. I came to the podcast Reset with Liz Tran, and she actually calls career pivots career renovations, and that was just really comforting to me to hear, because like when you pivot, you kind of think everything behind you doesn't matter anymore. Like this knowledge, all this time that you spent working on this craft that you really enjoyed or decided to spend time on, and just like you kind of think it doesn't matter anymore because you're coming into this new industry, but actually you're just adding to this whole pool that you have now, and like being able to like pull all these different tools that you have from like your past, the new skill set, like makes you even more unique and valuable to a company. And while I'm doing my boot camp, a sign I know that I'm motivated is when I'm constantly reading outside of school, or like outside learning pretty much. And ways that I'm continuing to learn is like doing e-meetings with other UX designers and just like hearing about their journey, learning what they're going through, like just what the path is for them, because it's just really helpful to know what that path looks like. And while I'm learning about that from an early stage, I know that everyone has their unique path in the UX world. So it's also helping me really like not compare myself to other people by hearing their stories too. And I read a lot of articles on Medium from UX blog posts that are really cool and like digestible, because they're like less than 10 minutes, and I tell myself I want to read one every day, and I'm not able to do it every day, but it is like a nice thing to do when I'm not on social media, to just read an article, and then it feels like really productive. And when I do that in the beginning of the day, it's really nice to like kick off the day knowing that I read an article, to like grow knowledge and maybe even apply to whatever project I'm working on that day. And the last thing is newsletters, which on Medium you could subscribe to all the different people and then it'll like go right to your inbox. But I actually found this really cool app that I wanted to share with you all. It's called Meko. It's like, I guess it kind of solved my problem, because when I go to Gmail, sometimes when I see other emails, it stresses me out, when initially I just want to go there to read a newsletter. So this app is really cool because it takes all the newsletters out of your email account and then puts them into this really nicely organized layout where you could just click all the newsletters and just like read everything that's cool and inspirational for you without being distracted by the stressful emails. I wanted to end this podcast by talking about a book that I'm reading. I'm reading the book 1984 by George Orwell, and that book is it's a sci-fi book, and I don't know if I'm just like really into this theme, but it's usually like utopian worlds that are actually dystopian, so I might have a thing for those types of books because I feel like they really comment on what's happening in today's society. Because, for example, in the book, a part of their government, they have this sector where people on the daily are reformatting paragraphs or news or like any sort of information to delete it and reformat it into the way that they want people to know the information. So this one conversation, these two guys that work there, they're talking about like how eventually certain words will just be non-existent because they're changing out all the words of different books or like articles and stuff. And then they're like, well, one day people won't even know what the word freedom is. So pretty much like the government is trying to get rid of these words that could lead to revolution, is like the idea of freedom and peace. So that's what's happening in the book, which is like crazy because, I mean, there's a lot of connection that I just think is related to our world. I mean, this world, which is like freedom of speech. I've read 70 pages of this one and I want to recommend it already, but I haven't finished it. But so far, it's a really good book because there's just a lot that relates to the modern day, present day life. So I'll end the podcast there. Thank you for listening to episode 4, and check out all the links down below in the description of this podcast. And you can support the podcast by shopping on my Depop, which has like my clothing brand and ceramic pieces, and I'm going to be posting some original artwork and everything on the Depop. You have the option to pay your price, so you could just DM me the price that you want to pay and I will send it to you for that price. Check out the Medium article if you want to see my process of how I did my user experience project, and pretty much how I did it over twice because I kind of came into that hard part where I had to take a step away. And you can follow me on Instagram or just chat with me on Instagram at Marisa M. Lee, or send me a digital letter through email. Thank you for listening to the 4th episode of Be with Marisa Lee, and I hope you have a nice day, and we'll talk soon.